Casper and Dennis here for Submission Radio, proudly brought to you by Musashi. Standing with this man right here. There's no secret who he is. Triple C himself, Henry Cejudo, here to talk about UFC 241. Just quickly, I wanted to ask you, man, of the top three fights, you got Paulo Costa taking on Romero, you got Nate Diaz coming back against Anthony Pettis, and of course Daniel Cormier looking to defend against Stipe Miocic. Which one of those kind of gets you the most excited?
I'm going to be honest with you. It's going to be the Romero-Costa fight. I believe there's a main event, and then there's the main event, the people's main event, and then there's the fighter's main event. So the main event is Daniel Cormier versus Stipe. The people's main event is probably Pettis versus Diaz. But in reality, the most competitive fight to me is Romero versus Costa.
What do you think the sort of biggest X factors are in that one? Who are you kind of leaning towards?
Man, it's because
people say Costa, it's a big step up for him in Yoel when you look at his record. But at the same time, this is a young guy.
I personally think it's a big step for Yoel. I mean, this dude is 27 years old. I know him on a personal base. He can wrestle. He's got vicious power. I mean, I feel like Yoel Romero's going to be in for a treat. And I look up to and I admire Yoel Romero a lot. You know, growing up in wrestling, but I think he's met his match.
Just quickly, sorry to jump in, Casper. Costa was talking to me and Casper yesterday, and he said he wants to fly down to Australia. He believes he can beat Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya in one night. Do you believe we're looking at a guy in Costa who can go on to beat a guy like Yoel Romero and then become a champion in a competitive division with guys like a Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya?
Oh, absolutely. I think his greatest attribute in a Costa, and you can see him. He's a shredder. He's a sculpture. Is his mind. The man's got vicious beliefs. Like he believes that he can beat probably Yoel Romero tomorrow night, and then the next day fight the winner of Whittaker and Adesanya. I mean, the kid is looking out here to manifest his dream.
Yeah.
And Saturday night, I think the toughest fight for him is going to be Yoel Romero.
We know, obviously, with Yoel Romero's kind of history when it comes to weight cutting. I'm just wondering, did you see it as any kind of message that he came in, I believe it was 1.5 pounds under. He could have been 186, but he came in 184.5, and you refused to take the shorts off. So theoretically, he weighed even lighter. It's almost like he's trying to send a message that, you know, he can make championship weight whenever he wants.
No, not really. I think it's just sometimes you miscalculate the fact that you just miscalculate the weight, and you feel like you got to stay in your sauna suit for too long. Like you wouldn't be the last person trying to weigh in. Trust me, Yoel Romero would not give up an ounce. It's ridiculous. But anyways, it was more of a miscalculation, I feel like, on his part.
We don't have you for too much time, so I just want to quickly mention this Nate Diaz Anthony Pettis fight. I mean, a lot of people sort of talking about the fact that Anthony Pettis sort of gave away the blueprint to how this fight might go in his open workout. We had his partner mimic Nate Diaz, and he showed us that he's going to be keeping Nate Diaz away with kicks, keeping him at distance, and sort of following a strict strategy. He even mentioned it in the open workout. How do you see this fight going? Do you see Anthony Pettis winning here?
It's a tough fight because Nate has been gone for 3 years, you know, and he's coming back. But also, really, it's water versus kind of vinegar in some way. Yeah. If I'm giving an analogy, because Pettis is a more creative guy, but Diaz has the base of Mexican style pressing and just throwing punches. So it's going to come down to who game plans and who's able to survive for 15 minutes. Because I can also see Diaz, I can see Pettis knocking him out, and I can see Diaz putting this crazy amount of pressure where he just folds you. So it's up in the air, man.
Just quickly, who do you think sort of has a better chance of finishing? Because I feel like on the ground, they're so evenly matched, right? Nate Diaz's jiu-jitsu. Anthony Pettis is just unbelievable on the ground. And we know that Anthony's also very tough. Nate Diaz, you know, it's almost impossible to finish that guy.
Absolutely. And he's, I feel like Anthony Pettis' jiu-jitsu is very underrated. I mean, we saw him submit Gilbert Melendez with the guillotine. We saw him Ben Henderson with the arm bar. I mean, the man is creative, and that's somebody that you gotta literally, you gotta have three eyes open with him, because he's pulling tricks out of his hat that we haven't seen before. Using the cage and things of that matter. I mean, there's a lot of creativity in him.
Yeah, and a lot of people are sort of wondering what's up for the winner. Do you see the winner in a position to move on to a big money fight? A lot of people are looking at a guy like Conor McGregor or a guy like Jorge Masvidal. Do you think that's sort of what's up for grabs to the winner of this Anthony Pettis-Nate Diaz fight?
I would say so. I say if Nate wins, he fights. If Nate wins, he's gonna fight George Masvidal. I can already see that kind of manifesting. If Anthony Pettis wins, he's just gonna fall into he's gonna be in kind of in the title conversation. You just never know with the UFC because there is a ranking system, but there's also an entertainment system, and that's what Nate brings to the table. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a damn title shot after this fight.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something crazy? These guys are packing us up, and I know you got to go. So just wondering, as far as the main event, Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic, I imagine this one's going to be a lot longer, right? The way the first one ended, you got to think Stipe Miocic has a counter for that. How do you see this fight going? And do you sort of lean towards either guy for any particular reason?
Stipe, I hope he made adjustments the first fight with Daniel Cormier, but it's gonna come to him sticking to his game plan, not getting emotional, not being inside the pocket with Daniel. But I think for the most part, man, Daniel's coming. He's coming with different heat. This may be his last fight. He wants to leave. If he leaves this game, he leaves as, the 2-division champ, the pound-for-pound king. I mean, there's a plus to him too, man. So that's a motivating factor too, is to say, hey, I'm putting a timeline, like I'm done after this fight. I'm satisfied with my career. I think that's what makes it special.
What did you make of both of them coming in so light? Daniel is lighter than he was for the first fight, and Stipe Miocic is even lighter than Daniel.
I don't know. I really don't know. I know Daniel loves to eat, man. So he's just probably
sacrificing his part doing this, right?
Yeah, I think at heavyweight, I don't think it necessarily matters as much, but I think Stipe kind of planned ahead, did it on purpose, maybe to be faster. I think with Daniel, it was just him maybe running or training a little bit more, but I think for the most part he enjoys being a heavyweight.
Just two more questions and we'll let you go. Daniel Cormier, obviously an incredible wrestler. For a guy like yourself who's obviously a champion in wrestling, Olympic champion in wrestling, a guy that I would guess was he a motivator to you when you were younger, when you saw a guy like DC crossing over into MMA? And what would it mean to you to sort of see him have his last fight this weekend?
Oh, absolutely.
Personally?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Daniel was. I look up to Daniel. I look up to Daniel in a way of. He's been through a lot, man. I've known Daniel since 2004, since I was a kid, man. I was 17 years old the first time I met him, and we've been in touch ever since. So I've had a chance to see him fall in wrestling and in the Olympics and watching him in the NCAAs, and obviously his whole story all along through high school being second place and whatnot. So, but for him now, being a 2-division champ and being pound for pound king, man, it's like, I'm the same athlete as him. I'm the same. I come from the same background, so it puts it into perspective for you. I may not get the attention, I may not get the glamour as him, but I know where I fall, and I think that's beautiful.
You get a bit more gold than him.
I didn't want to bring it up, but since you brought it up, I have a gold medal, everybody.
Triple C right here, and just quickly with his legacy, never having beaten John Jones, what is his legacy? What is it if he retires this weekend? Where does it leave his legacy? In your mind, he's obviously achieved a lot of stuff, 2 championships, but everybody always brings up this John Jones fight. Where does he fall in the legacy ladder for you if he does retire this week?
I'll put it to you this way. He's in, if they had to do a Mount Rushmore for MMA fighters, he would be one of the guys. To say he's the greatest of all time, godly, you still got Demetrius Johnson, people. We still got.
That's nice of you, man. Considering that you're wearing the gold and you beat Demetrius Johnson.
And he had a bit of a rough fight in his last performance in one.
Right. But game recognizes game. And what Demetrius has been able to do, what John Jones has been able to do, what Anderson Silva has been able to do, what George St. Pierre. But I would, if I had to take one of those guys off, and people may hate me for this, but what is it, Mount Rushmore? How many people are in there? 4 or 5?
We're Australian, so what do we know? But I'm going to say 4.
I've never seen it personally, but it looks nice.
Yeah, well,
they have not many.
Yeah, I would say Daniel Cormier, John Jones, Demetrius Johnson, and probably Fedor Emelianenko.
Oh, of course, Fedor, the last emperor. Finally, as we wrap up Triple C, we got to find out. We've seen the challenges you've put out to Valentina Shevchenko. Have you heard back from her? Has she responded? And what has the response been thus far? It could be a very intimidating challenge, a guy like Triple C, you know, one of the best in the division.
I am,
head
but
kick.
dude, I am such a gold digger. Valentina, if you're watching this, if you're hearing this, what's up? Let's do it. Sign the contract. Send it over.
Here's Triple C.
Yeah, I feel like this is a DX situation. Triple C, maybe Billy Gunn, Road Dogg. We got 2 words for you. Finish it off for us, Henry.
I take no prisoners, man. You guys can all get it. Everybody can bend the knee.
There you guys go. Submission Radio UFC 241 with Triple C himself ahead of a really crazy weekend of fights. Thank you so much, Henry. He's off. He's already doing the next thing. Check out the fights this weekend. It's going to be amazing.